Hello, welcome. We're now on to Chapter 9. This time we're talking about sexual harassment in the workplace. This is another hot topic in which human resources plays a tremendous role, mainly in the prevention of sexual harassment within the workplace. Most every employer offers the mandated 3-hour sexual harassment training with up to 6 hours for supervisors on a yearly basis. This is something we want to make sure, again, that is very preventable in the workplace. We'd rather be on top of it than find ourselves involved with employees filing a suit for sexual harassment claims. So sexual harassment is actually more common than you may think. Most people think of it as a male versus female encounter. It can be people of the same gender, female-female, male-male, or even females making sexual harassment, sexual comments, jokes of a sexual nature to a male coworker. So these are the different varieties that we can see in the workplace. The chapter goes on to define the two most common types of sexual harassment in the workplace. First being quid pro quo. This is a term that you'll remember. It means this for that. So in a quid pro quo sexual harassment instance, then you have someone saying, I will give you this promotion, I will give you a bonus, I will give you a different title in the workplace if you do X, Y, and Z, of course, of a sexual nature in this instance. So that's quid pro quo, this for that. And then there's a hostile work environment. That's where someone uses sexual gestures, comments, in order to create, whether they intend to or not, they create a hostile or unwelcome environment. Most commonly, we can probably think of comments, gestures, but it could be as offensive or as simple as a calendar that someone doesn't find so appealing. A common example is going into an auto body shop and you find calendars on the back wall of wonderful looking bikini models. That might sound great to the mechanics in the shop, but it could be offensive to someone that works in the shop or customers that come to visit. That could be an example of sexual harassment. Something that someone wears or says, actions, implications, these are all examples of sexual harassment. So things that we want to really be on the up and up on. We want to educate our staff and counsel anyone that brings a claim of sexual harassment to us. There is a great slide, slide 11, that highlights some of the elements of quid pro quo versus a hostile work environment. I'm sure that that will be worth your while if you go ahead and give it a glance. I mentioned previously the concept of unwelcome. So office romances occur very frequently. A lot of people end up meeting their spouses in the workplace. But what we want to make sure is not occurring is some instance that is unwelcome. That's the key word. So if someone was making an advancement, a gesture, a comment that the other person considers to be unwelcome, then we find ourselves within the realm of sexual harassment. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable because workplace romances are pretty common, things that we want to be aware of or highly encourage our staff not to participate in our office relationships, particularly with regards to supervisors. That can tend not to end well, and it could also look like a quid pro quo situation where we have a supervisor promoting someone that is his superior and they're in a relationship. It gets kind of sticky. So we want to make sure that our workforce is very well informed. Reasonable person standard. This is within the chapter. Something to keep in mind. So there's the reasonable person standard and the reasonable victim standard. What will be decided when this is brought to our office in human resources, to a supervisor's office, can go all the way up to court, is this is something that is considered sexual harassment by a reasonable person. So we would put on the thinking cap of someone who would be both the accuser and then the victim. We want to see, in this instance, is it something that is a serious incident or something that someone took out of line, didn't understand, they misinterpreted, they were having a bad day, they didn't realize, whatever it might be. So there are some really good examples in the textbook highlighting some of the cases and what brought this all about. Something to keep in mind is that sexual harassment does not come under Title VII. This is actually a separate clause, separate federal rules and regulations that we adhere to, and one that's very prevalent in today's workforce. So make sure that you're doing your weekly work, your burning question, your quizzes. You guys are doing great. We're already on to Chapter 9. Let's move on.